It's back to school season in many countries right now, especially the UK, USA, and in India also college might be just starting for many of you, or maybe your semester breaks have just gotten over, or maybe the college just started and you might be on the lookout for a new laptop. This video is going to be a guide on how to purchase a new laptop. I'm not going to be recommending any models. What I'm going to be doing is giving you a few tips, a bit advice to know that you're making the proper decision when purchasing a laptop, and the restraints or whatever you have to follow, what you'll be getting for that your price. Basically, it's like a guide to know that you are getting the bang for your buck. So without any further ado, let's not waste any time and let's head on to the laptop buying guide. First thing you need to know is if you have any brand preferences or OS choice. So let's start off with OS choice. If you're a person that has gravitated towards macOS, or you're a person that has been using macOS for a really long time, for example, you've been using a 2012 MacBook Pro or a 2015 MacBook Air or something like that, and you're looking to upgrade, and personally you've set your eyes on getting a Mac, then that is your this thing. Or if you have had a poor experience with Windows or whatever, and you want to switch to macOS because you've been hearing really good things about it, and you've decided that macOS is the place to go, then macOS, or Windows for those of you who just generally want Windows. So I'll go into this with a bit more detail later. So let's start off with the first topic that I've written, that is brand preferences. If you're able to see my mouse pointer, then good. I'm sure many of you will have brand preferences, whether it's from using someone else's laptop or seeing on YouTube. Also, sometimes you just develop brand preferences, or even from your personal purchases. You might have bought a laptop before and you personally feel like that laptop is brands are good. Basically, it's your preference. Then these are the brands I would recommend: Apple, Lenovo, and Asus. If you're looking for laptops, brands that I would not recommend are Dell. HP is kind of also on the would not recommend, but they also have, it's like very varying. They either have really good ones or they have like pretty bad ones too. But Dell, for me personally, is a no-go because of I've personally had horrible experience with Dell, so I wouldn't go for Dell. But if you're a person that believes in Dell, then maybe you should. But personally, I wouldn't recommend it even to my worst enemy. And yeah, so these are the brands I would recommend: Apple, Lenovo, and Asus. Asus has been doing a really good job in giving the value for your money. Lenovo also has been kind of around that, while also being like a tier above that because it has lots of repair centers. They sell the high amount, so it's there in smaller cities too. Apple also has like lots of refinement. And I might not be talking about brands like Framework and stuff because they're not available in India. So yeah, so now the next point is OS choice, Mac OS. So if you have had problems with Windows and you really want to shift to Mac OS, like how I did, then one thing you need to know is if all your software that you're using at Windows, for example, if you're a person who's a working professional or a student and you need your laptop for anything like that, and you don't have that time to learn or adapt to the new software, you need to see if the apps are running. If not, at least natively, at least on Rosetta, if it's able to run those softwares are available on macOS. That's one thing that's very important. And if it matches your workload, if you're a gamer, then obviously do not get macOS. Don't expect running games on parallels or anything like that. So that's one thing you need to know. Windows, for those of you who are stuck to Windows and you want to just continue with Windows, I get it. Windows is simple to use and it's not that bad. But personally, I wanted to shift to macOS. But if you want to stay with Windows, it's still a good choice. I like Windows 11 a lot. And if you want to stay to Windows 10, whatever, it's your decision if you want to stay with Windows. So that thing you need to be clear, because you need to sort out of those options when you are looking for products. With macOS, you can get a bit more basically power efficiency. You can get a better battery life, but the trade-off is you have to use macOS. With Windows, you won't get that much power. You'll get a bit hotter, maybe with fans and stuff. Those type of things will be there. Over here, there's an options for fanless and much more optimized software. On Windows, you lose things like that, but you'll get lots of customizability. You can delete Windows if you want to. You can install Linux. All those things you can do. You can play games if you're at least running a good device, then you can play games. So those are all the pros with Windows. You have a lot of customizability, a lot of control over your computer, which you necessarily do not get with macOS. That's my personal take on it. Okay, let's move on to the next thing, which is the budget, which is also very important. You need to know what your budget is before buying something. And so you need to have a fixed budget. In my opinion, you should you should not kind of like trail base, and then in the end, if you're asking, for example, if you're not the person who's going to buy it and your parents are responsible for buying it for you, then set a clear budget defined and do not bounce over it unless necessary. So if you're one of those lucky people with an infinite budget that okay, can buy the most expensive thing, then yeah, then you don't actually have any constraints. Then it just depends on your workload. If you're a person at 60k, 70k, 80k, then if you're a person with a budget like 40k, then I would recommend going to the offline stores and getting a better deal. Maybe especially if you're a student, then you taking use of that student discount into place, maybe haggle a bit so that you can get the best bang for your buck. Maybe wait for the right time for deals. So just have a budget in mind when you're looking for things. Don't for example, if you know that you can only afford a laptop at around 70k, don't look at laptops around 2 lakh for like that is what I'm saying. And I'm also not a fan of anyone getting into those things like EMIs and all. So I would suggest, if you are in a position where you have to get an EMI for it, I would suggest waiting and buying it with your own money. EMIs are predatory in nature, in my opinion. Purpose of purchase, that is the next most important thing, which kind of revolves around your entire purchase making decision after this. Is your main purpose gaming, or is your secondary purpose gaming, or do you just need it for your professional work? Maybe you're a person that tabulates a lot of data, you have a lot of Excel sheets running, you get on a lot of video conferences. Are you a coder? Do you code a lot of stuff? So then what specific languages do you code in? Or do you work with stuff like AI and ML, or do you? And then so basically coding, you need to know what kind of software you run, what languages you're coding, what are the things you need out of your laptop. Video editing, so if you're editing a lot of video, then you need to know like how your timeline is going to work, because if you have a lot of 4K videos playing back to back in the editing, then you will need a very expensive computer to handle that much tasks. And especially if you're buying a laptop, then it would be better to get a PC at that price range to get the value for your money. Or if you're doing a lot of photo editing, how many photos will you have in the background? How many effects will you add? If you're a person that's maybe into coding, but you also want to run Blender, then you shouldn't get a Mac. Like those type of things, basically, like if you're doing 3D rendering and stuff, then maybe you should look for Windows. So those type of things are coming. Then obviously, if you're just a basic student, you just need it for notes, then any simple battery life might be a very big thing for you. Battery life, maybe a good set of speakers if you're that type of person that uses the speakers, or maybe you need an Ethernet port because you like having the fastest Wi-Fi, or some other thing, you want a good display to watch your lectures on, or something like that. Good. So you need to know what are your priorities when purchasing a laptop. So that kind of sums it up for the intro part of the things you need to know before buying your laptop.